This is what a $25 million salary looks like. And this is what a $50,000 a year salary looks like, okay? And the $50,000 salary is about what 1/4 of Washington residents pull in for income. Seattle is one of the most expensive cities in the entire country, and what your salary affords you for a lifestyle, what it actually buys you here, will absolutely shock you. I've toured thousands of homes across every price point in this market, all the way from starter condos to multi-million-dollar estates, and the gap between them is absolutely insane. So today, I'm gonna break down 5 income levels for you: 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, 1 million, and 25 million, and show you exactly what each one looks like right here in the Seattle area. I'm going to include housing, transportation, food budgets, health, and more, so you can see exactly what these different income levels are going to look like. Stick around to the end because the wealth gap in the state is absolutely going to blow your mind. I see every price point in this market every single day. First-time buyers to multi-million-dollar estates. One thing to note is there's no state income tax in Washington yet. I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute because it's about to change. But that changes the math versus other states. We've got a sales tax, of course, got pretty high property taxes as well, but there is no income tax at the moment. I do think it's coming though. The Seattle's cost of living is brutal, and it's all the way from the lower tiers all the way to the top, okay? Let's break it down tier by tier. We're going to start with the $50,000 a year salary, okay? This is about 25% of people that live in Washington. This could be somebody like a retail manager, a warehouse leader, an entry administrator, a barista that's full-time, but this is gonna be close to the Washington median income. Take home would be about $3,400 a month after federal taxes. Obviously not having that state income tax helps a little bit. For housing, this person's looking at probably spending about $1,400 a month. And that budget's going to get you something like a 1-bedroom apartment in outlying areas like Everett, Marysville, or Lake Stevens. Those are all suburbs of Seattle, not Seattle proper, okay? Seattle proper itself is out of reach for somebody that's solo. The average 1-bedroom is going to be $1,800 to $2,200 a month. So you'd be looking at renting a room or living in the suburbs, okay? As far as buying a house, I hate to tell you, but that's not going to be happening on a $50,000 salary. You'd qualify for maybe $250,000 on the purchase price. And of course, there's nothing like that in our market. Our market starts around $750,000. So you're not even thinking about buying a house if you're in this income bracket, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. As far as a car goes, obviously it's going to be a stretch to have a car in this income range, but it would be pretty much needed because public transit doesn't really serve most of those affordable areas. It's kind of a catch-22. Like, public transit services the core downtown areas and the expensive markets, but it doesn't really reach those outlying areas where you find more affordable housing. So a used car, you'd probably want to budget $400 to $500 a month for the payment, gas, and insurance, okay? And that's probably on the low side if you're commuting into Seattle every day for work and driving a fair bit. Could look at EV, something like that, to save on gas. As far as food goes, it's going to be tight. You're thinking like $400 a month total, which is like $100 a week. You're going to be shopping at places like Fred Meyer, Grocery Outlet, Winco. Going to be cooking most meals at home, probably not eating out very often, like maybe once a month at the most. As far as health goes, your employer may cover some of your health care. Still, you can expect $200 to $300 a month for things like copays, medications, basic kind of stuff that you're going to have to pay along with your insurance. So you're probably left with maybe $200 to $300 a month at the end of the day. That would include for things like phone, internet, entertainment, savings, super thin margin. If you have like even one car repair or a medical bill, that's going to be major financial stress. You're going to be racking up credit card debt. So there's really no path to home ownership in this income bracket, unless maybe you got married or something and now you had multiple incomes. This is really where a lot of people fall in the Seattle suburbs, unfortunately. It's a very frustrating place for people to be. They're always asking themselves, how do I break through to that next level where I can actually afford to have a buffer and afford to actually buy a home? Like, most of these people want to buy a home, they just simply cannot afford to buy one. That gets me to the $100,000 a year bracket. So this is about 50%, roughly the median of Washington residents. Okay, there's a lot of people, and this is like mid-level tech positions, skilled trades, teacher plus side hustle would be in this category as well. A nurse potentially, sales. It's going to feel like it should be pretty comfortable, but it's going to be pretty tight when you do the math here. I'm going to break it down for you. You're going to take home about $6,100 a month after you pay federal taxes. On the housing side of things, you can definitely go up from the last bracket quite a bit. You can afford more like $2,700 a month. And that would allow you to buy a home between 4 and 450,000 more than likely, just depending on HOA dues, property taxes, things like that. That could look like a 2-bedroom condo, not a house, but a condo in Bothell, Linwood, or Everett, but definitely not a single family house in Seattle or anything like that. So a decent single family house in Snohomish County, which is the county just north of Seattle, starts at $600,000 to $700,000. You'd need to have a dual income stream or a big down payment in this income bracket to make this work. Okay. For a car, I mean, you can handle a real car payment, like a $35,000 to $50,000 vehicle, like $700, $800 a month. Doesn't mean it's a great investment to be spending that. If you can spend $300 or $400 a month and just save that money, you're gonna be a lot better off, of course, but you can't afford it in this income bracket. Again, I like EVs. I drive a Tesla just because I don't like having gas bills. On the food side of things, you've got a much better budget. You can spend $700 to $900 a month. That means you can go places like Trader Joe's, PCC, which are like natural food shops, which is awesome. You can eat out a couple times a week. You can do DoorDash once in a while. You've got some buffer in here. You've got something to play with, which is great. On the health side of things, your employer is going to cover most of your insurance, but still expect $400 to $500 a month for things like copays, gym, supplements. You can save and invest a tiny amount. Usually this is going to go towards creating an emergency reserve, so that when something does happen that was unexpected or not budgeted for, you can actually afford to pay it. You don't just have to throw it on credit cards and go massively in debt. So you can also take a vacation if you've budgeted that for months in this income bracket. But $100,000 a year, it sounds like a lot of money, but does not feel rich in Seattle. I have to be very upfront with you about that. It feels like you're just barely getting by comfortably. $100,000 a year in Seattle is not $100,000 in most of the rest of the country. Single family home ownership is still out of reach. Again, condos are a possible option, but not a single family house, unfortunately, in this area. But just, it's like that income bracket that is so close to breaking through, but it's not quite there. If you have two people each making $100,000 a year, that's where the game starts to change, and we can actually start doing some, really having some buffer and being able to afford more things like owning a house. That gets me to income bracket number 3, which is the $150,000 a year. This is the top 25%, believe it or not, in Washington State. And this is going to include positions like senior technicians, an engineer, a dual income household, someone that's experienced in sales, small business owner. This is like the comfortable tier, okay? So your take home is like $8,800 a month after taxes. This is where Seattle starts to feel livable, but $250,000 is where it actually starts to feel middle class, not rich. So you're still not there yet, unfortunately. Housing, you can afford to spend $3,500 to $4,000 a month. That's going to qualify you for $550 to $650 on a purchase price on a house, just depending on your down payment. You can start looking now at single family homes in Snohomish County, like Lake Stevens, Monroe, Arlington, maybe a small starter house in Bothell, maybe, but it starts to get pretty expensive. But you're still not buying in Seattle proper, more than likely, where a medium home price is more like $850 plus. On the car side of things, you can afford a comfortable car payment, like a newer SUV, a truck, $50,000 to $65,000 a year. You can definitely do that if you want to. I'm not saying it's a great investment, but it's something you could do if you wanted to do. On the food side of things, you could probably spend more like $1,000 to $1,200 a month. You're not really stressing the prices of food in this income bracket. You're shopping at nicer grocery stores like PCC, Whole Foods. You're eating out weekly, nice dinner once a month at a fancy restaurant, date night, something like that. On the health side of things, you probably have really good employer insurance. You can afford a nicer gym that's like $50 to $100 a month. You can afford, physical therapy, the occasional specials like massage, IV therapy, things like that. But in this income bracket, you're probably saving and investing consistently, more than likely through a 401k, maybe a brokerage account, and you're building in a real emergency fund. Okay, so you're actually like saving real money, especially if you're not being haphazard on the way that you spend on things like a car payment. Like you're staying conservative on your fixed debt structure, which I highly recommend doing. You can take a vacation once or twice a year without stressing. You can fly domestic, maybe one international trip if you plan ahead. This is the tier where you start to feel okay, but you're not wealthy yet. You're still budgeting, you're still making trade-offs, but life feels like it's okay. It's not bad. $150,000 is where home ownership in Snohomish County starts to become realistic. Okay. If you have a dual income of 150, obviously the game is going to change massively for you. It's going to put you more like in the top 1%. But this is like the sweet spot for families here. You're still watching your money. You just got less stress with it. Like, you really need to push to be at 150 or more to feel comfortable living in this area. Like that 150 to 300 range is the real comfort zone where you're going to have a decent lifestyle. You're going to have a decent house, decent car. You're going to be able to afford to actually live and take vacations, have fun money, things like that, and have reserves. That gets me to income bracket number 4, which is $1 million a year. Big jump up. This is the top 1% in Washington state, but it's still not the absolute top. And who is this? This is going to be things like a tech executive, a senior VP at Amazon, Microsoft, Meta. They all have headquarters here. Private equity, of course, a business owner that's in the top 1% would all be in this bracket. Your take home is about $48,000 a month after federal taxes, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but people do spend it really quickly, usually when they get to this income bracket. $1 million earner in Washington keeps roughly 50 to 80,000 more per year than the same earner in California because they don't have that income tax in the state yet. But again, I want to talk about that for just a minute. Washington is currently considering passing a state income tax on income earners over $1 million, and it starts at $1 million. So if you make like up to $1 million, you're not going to have to pay any income tax under the proposed law that's been passed by parts of the House now in Olympia. But every dollar over $1 million, they're proposing roughly a 10% tax on. So like if you made $1.1 million, you would pay $10,000 in taxes, which is 10% of that $100,000 over $1 million. So if that passes, this math is going to change quickly, just not for this tier. It could push high income earners to other no income tax states. On the housing side of things, you can afford a $2.5 to $3 million house. So you're thinking like a gorgeous $4 to $5 million home, in prime areas like Mercer Island, Medina, Snohomish, Waterfront, Mukilteo. All of those kind of places are totally doable. Your mortgage and expenses, you can probably budget something like $19,000 to $25,000 a month. That would include things like having house cleaners weekly, landscaping services. All those things you're going to need to maintain a property like that. On a car side of things, you're probably leasing something like a Rivian, a Porsche, a Range Rover every 3 years, probably spending $1,000 to $2,000 a month on that payment. Maybe you have a second car as well. On food, you have no worries here at all. Like you're spending $3,500 a month. You're never checking prices. You're going to Canlis, which is like a great restaurant. The Walrus, DoorDash, whenever, premium groceries, you're not thinking about food at all because you've got plenty of money for that. On health side of things, you probably have a concierge doctor, which means you have a doctor on call, basically. You've got a personal trainer, luxury gym, any special side of pocket, therapy, maybe a diet coach. You're investing heavily. You're probably active in the stock market. You probably have a real estate portfolio beyond just your primary residence, and your wealth starts to really compound at this level, meaning your money is making you a lot more money. You probably fly business class. You probably take multiple vacations per year. And you're paying for time savings everywhere in your life. Like you're trying to outsource things as often as possible to buy back your time and have leverage. Again, the no state income tax is really huge for this income level. That brings me to the 5th tier, which is the $25 million a year tier. This is like the absolute top. This is the 0.01%. And I put this in here because most people are just curious, like, what does this lifestyle look like? It's not, attainable for the majority of people. But it would likely be the CEO of a very large company, major business owner, celebrity, we got the Seahawks, top tech founder, global elite kind of person. Most of your pay is likely in stock, not in cash. So it's taxed at 15 to 20% capital gains, not income tax, which is huge. This is often going to result in you paying less than someone that makes $150,000 a year. So Washington's lack of income tax and capital gains structure is really favorable for somebody that's in this bracket right now. But again, I think that's changing as we consider passing that income tax in Washington. For housing, you can afford really whatever you want, 5 to 15 million, no problem at all. Medina, Mercer Island, Hunts Point, Waterfront, Bellevue, compound in the San Juans, probably both if you want them. You got like a full staff, like a house manager, a personal chef, nutritionist, diet coach, landscaping crew, private driver. The private driver is going to cost you like $50,000 a year alone. So as far as cars go, you have lots of different vehicles, probably including collectibles that you rarely drive. That full-time driver drives you around everywhere. As far as travel goes, you probably use private jet charters, where you pay like $25,000 for a 2-hour flight because your time is extremely valuable. And maybe you fly first class commercially when you're flying internationally. It's like $25,000 for 2 tickets to Paris, something like that. If you're making that kind of money, it's probably not the biggest stress. As far as food goes, you probably have like personal chef. You have a wine cellar. You go out for $300 a person dinners without even thinking about it. Private rooms, top restaurants, the works. Like you're enjoying the best of the best restaurants and dining in Seattle and Bellevue. As far as health goes, you have a private on-call doctor. Probably going to be like a $20,000 a year retainer. You're going to have a personal trainer who travels with you. You're going to have every procedure available to you through this private doctor, okay? You're going to look at philanthropy for tax strategy, family foundations, donor lists, All these things help you avoid capital gains, which you're trying to minimize. You're probably physically isolated from every single problem that regular people deal with, things like crime, noise, commuting, financial stress, all those things you don't even think about. Like, you just are buffered from it. You make more in 1 hour than the $50,000 earner makes in 3 months. One workday equals years of a regular person's income. Washington is a tax haven for this income bracket at the moment, okay? So there you go. Here's the thing that nobody really talks about. Washington has no state income tax, but we have one of the highest sales tax rates in the country, and sales tax is regressive. It hits the person making $50,000 way harder than the person making $1 million. If you're making $50,000 a year, you're paying the same 10% sales tax on groceries, gas, and everyday essentials as someone that's making $25 million a year. So that's a much bigger chunk of your paycheck. So when people say that Washington is a low tax state, that really depends on how much money you make. It also depends on if this income tax passes or not for higher income earners. You also have to consider that property taxes here are not cheap, and the quality of the state's services based on those taxes are mediocre at best. Look at the schools, look at the roads. It doesn't seem like they're investing that money that wisely, okay? So just look at that as kind of evidence for how our tax dollars are used. This is why working with the right real estate agent matters, no matter where you fall on the spectrum, whether if it's on the lower side, the $150,000 a year, and you're trying to just break through and buy that starter house, or you're making boatloads of money, you want to find that perfect dream estate. That's what we do, is we help people find those different properties at different price points. So if you're looking to buy or sell in the Seattle area, my team and I have helped over 1,600 families make a move, and we'd like to definitely talk with you about possibly helping you as well. There's a link in the description below to connect with us and to fill out an intake form, and we'll look at that. And if we think we're a good fit to work with you, we'll reach out to you and set up a call. So drop a comment though. Tell me below, what income tier are you in? Did the cost of living here surprise you? Did it line up with what you thought and what you expected? Of course, also like, share, subscribe to our channel. We drop 2 new videos each and every week. That way you'll never miss an update.